One of the worst things that can happen to someone is losing something or someone that they love. There's so much more that comes after the visits, after the sympathy, after the all is well. Grief is not a moment in a time. We don't move on from those that we love. We move forward with them because a part of them is in us. We carry their memories with us forever. Grief doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens alongside a mixture of emotions. We need to understand that not all wounds are meant to heal. We need each other to try and remind one another that some things can be fixed. And that is why we bring you the Voice of Healing on JCC TV, a show where we walk with you through the journey of healing. It does not matter what you're going through, what you have gone through. We are here to enlighten you. We are here to walk through the journey with you. We are here to tell you what the Lord says, and we are here to share stories and share experiences of how we were also able to get out of it. My name is Lucy Manu, and this is JCC TV, where we bring you the uncompromised gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ. We are going to be dealing with understanding loss and grief, and I am joined by two amazing ladies that I am going to let introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Faith Muna. I am the coordinator of the Wilfred Lai Foundation. The Wilfred Lai Foundation offers scholarship to poor yet bright children, and mainly to the orphans and to the children of the widow. So in my area of work, I interact a lot with the children who are grieving, women who lost their husband, and it is a journey. And I thank God for that journey that we go through with them. Thank you.
My name is Wilfred Lai. I'm a counseling psychologist. I do independent consultant with several organizations like FIDA Kenya, VTTI, and I'm also a coordinator of program of International Renaissance Center. Welcome.
Asante sana. Thank you so much for joining us today. And on our last episode, we started on grief, and we said that grief is the physical, emotional, somatic, cognitive, and spiritual response to actual or threatened loss of a person, a thing, or a place to which we are emotionally attached to. Faith, you are the coordinator for the Wilfred Lai Foundation, and this is a foundation where you have orphans, you have support groups for widows. What are some of the griefs that you have experienced?
Mainly is the child grieving for the parent. That is one of the cases that I experience, that the child is not able to bring out his gifting. He's an academic giant. He's a child who's able to score an A, and right now he's scoring a D. Mm-hmm. And you're beginning to wonder that this child is going through the process of grief. And sometimes even when you select those children, you understand that this is a process they are going through. You have brought them to a new environment and they are healing. So those are the cases we always speak to the child, encourage the child, call them for counseling, and we have put staff who's aware of the environment, that this child is going through 1, 2, 3. Some issues are very confidential. What is confidential, we put it to be confidential. What is not confidential, we share with them that this particular child has lost both of her parents, so kindly understand what she's going through. So whenever we find that this child maybe has gone through trouble, so many cases, and the teachers are not understanding why this child is behaving the way she's behaving, sometimes we have to bring in the teachers and tell them this child is under sponsorship and this has happened to this child, so kindly understand what she's going or he is going through. Now when it comes to the widow, when they lose their husband, and of course one of the challenges and the experiences I had in my area of work is the fact a lady is completely not able to educate her children or feed her children. At the same time, she's going through grief. She's going through anger. And you find that you are trying to help by educating maybe one child. But now the lady, she's not able to feed the other children. She's going through that process of mourning and imagining if the husband was here, he will have brought food. So now you have to equip this lady and take her through training that now life has changed. You need to improve, you need to work on yourself. Take her through a teaching mentally, that she needs to understand herself, to understand her surrounding. Take her through also spiritual matters that can be handled through pastors, where she can be prayed for and also comforted. But at the same time, empower her. Because when she's idle and mourning and crying and don't know what to do, she is going through so much trauma at that time. But now when you call her for a group, kuja jifundisha, come and do something with the work of your hand, it relieves that burden of grieving from her. It relief, and she's occupied with the work of her hands doing something. Yes.
Winnie,
Yes.
Faith mentioned something, the child grieving their parent, and most of the time they just have to be taken out of school. After the burial, they are taken back to school.
Yes.
In that environment, how should that child be helped through that transition?
So generally, it is good to know the child is grieving, and the grieving may take some time. It doesn't mean that they just buried their parent and then they are okay because they are back to school. There are so many things that may be reminding them their parents, even maybe in school. Like for example, maybe their parents used to visit them during the visiting day. Now comes the visiting day, the parent is no more. Then maybe also there is a teacher who looks like the mother. So when the child comes there, she may start even mourning more because now she's seeing the reflection of the mother in the teacher. Are you getting it? So the child needs to be helped to go through the emotions. The child needs to be helped to be in a position to understand that the parent is no more, but we are going to move with the child through the process. And it is good to help them to speak out their mind, the pain, the way they are feeling. Let them express their feeling. Let us not try to fix what they are feeling. They are the expert of the problem. They are the ones who know how it pains. They are the ones who know the position of their parents in their heart and their emotion. Sometimes even they may feel like, why did God didn't heal my mother? So let them go through that, because remember we were talking of denial. Remember we were talking with bargaining. Maybe they are bargaining. God, maybe you could not have taken my mother. It is a process. When we understand the way this process goes, we will be in a position to understand them. We will be in a position to move with them. We will be in a position to give them a shoulder to lean on. We will be in a position to give them a listening ear when they are talking. And then after that, we tell them it is okay to mourn so that they can be able to overcome that. Because most of the time, if the emotions are repressed, they will come later to bring issues. So it is better for them to deal with those emotions as they come. Let them tell you how they are feeling now that they have lost their parents. Because when it comes to loss, there are some losses which come with multiple things. Like the loss of their mother, maybe their mother is also a companion. It was the shoulder they could lean on. The mother was a source of was their role model. Most of those things. So that loss could have also come with multiple losses. They are wondering, after now we close school, who will be taking me to swimming? Who will be giving me the stories? Who will be telling me that they love me? So there are so many things that come with also the death, even for a child or even for other person. The same happens, like for example, if you lose maybe your husband, maybe that is the first loss that we are seeing. But maybe you are going through multiple losses. You lost your husband, you lost your companion, you lost your sexual partner, you lost your lover, and now you have lost so many things. We are only seeing the loss of the husband, and maybe you are also too dependent to your husband. The same case also applies to your job. There are some people whereby their identity is attached to their job. Now when you lose the job, you have lost the identity. Maybe I was the CEO, and that was what made you to have that self-esteem. Now you are feeling, I'm no longer a CEO. The second thing, you have lost your bread. Maybe you had also a loan. You don't have anywhere to pay the loan. You don't know even where you are going to start. Because maybe throughout all your life, you have been spending your life at work. Maybe you have never even tried business. Your kids are young. You just wonder, where do you start? Now you are going to be called a widower. You are not even ready to be called a widower. You are also young. You don't know even where to start. If maybe you are young, because the Bible says when you have not reached the age of 65, you are not a widower, you can still be married. You wonder, where are you going to start? Even if you get married again, will this other person fit the shoes of the husband you have lost? Will they love your kids? Will they take you the way you are? So there is a lot, even the emotions. They need to be able to experience the emotion. They need also to experience their loss. They understand that their mom is no more. But now they need to learn to live without their mother, because their mother will be no more. Maybe until maybe in the future when we go to heaven. But now the mother is no more. There is a life to live. There are studies to be studied, and there is life that is not solved to anybody. They must develop that resilience even as they heal. They must develop their own defense mechanism to be able to deal with their challenges. But let us help them to go through the process. And let us not even quicken the process. Some people even may grieve even for 6 months or even more. But it should not be for a long time, as we will see as we proceed. So let them help them. Let them understand. Let them tell their story. It is them who knows their mother. You have just seen their mother. You don't know their mother. You don't know what their mother means to them. You don't know even what they lost. Maybe that candling, you cannot candle them like their mom used to candle them. Maybe there is a name that their mom used to call them. You don't know even the name. And maybe that name brought some certain satisfaction to that child. So let us help them to go through the process as they heal.
So we should not try to fix grief. We should acknowledge that it happened.
Yes, especially now, like when we take them to a professional counselor, as they work through grief, the first thing they should do, they should prioritize the uniqueness of the client and their experience within the context of their life. It is their life. It is their life. And we said the dignity of each person is unique. The grieving of that client is unique. The experience they had with their parent is unique. Maybe it is not the experience you had with your parent. Then something else, they need to recognize the normality of the grief and empower the client to be actively involved, even in their adaptation. Remember yesterday we talked about adaptation theory, the psychology of human adjustment. Let them adjust their life without the person they have lost. But we should support the client without attempting to cure or to fix. You can never be their mother. You can never be their husband. You can only be there to listen to them and console them. Then respect the client as the expert, because they are an expert of their relationship they had with that person. They are the expert of the pain they are having, because it is their pain, it is not your pain. It is their mother, it is not your mom. And there is nobody who can fit in that shoe. So let us help them to go through the adaptation process, to learn to live without their mother. Let them put their mother in the memories and maybe admire the memories they had. Let them celebrate the time they had with their mother. But not to bring their mother in present. If my mother was here, their mother will never be here. But let them thank God for the time they had with their mother. Let them celebrate the moment, the good moment that they had with their parents.
I think this applies to everyone.
Yes.
Prioritize the uniqueness of everyone. Don't tell someone, I understand what you're feeling.
You can
or
never
I went
understand
through what we are going through. You will come out of it strong.
Lucy, you may have lost your husband and I lost my husband. Your husband is not my husband.
Yeah.
Your relationship with your husband is not my relationship with my husband. The companionship that we had, it is not maybe the companionship that you both had. Maybe your marriage was chaotic and maybe most of the things could not even move.
Yeah.
Maybe mine, I was 100% dependent on my man. So we will grieve differently.
Yeah.
Even the kids. We have different relationship with the parents. We may have one parent, but the way you relate with our father, it is not the way I relate with my father. And we are born in the same womb, the same mother, the same dad. And we will process those grief differently. Yes.
Okay, wow. Faith, what does the Bible say? If you look at the case study.
Well, we look at our case study in the Bible, and we look at King David. And the most amazing thing about King David is he is a father, and he lost 3 of his sons. And we look at the case study one by one, how he grieved and how he is able to come out of that period of grieving. So the first thing we acknowledge about King David, about him losing his child, it is in it's in the book of 2 Samuel, chapter 2, chapter 12, and from verse 16. This is the first death that happened to King David, whereby his wife was pregnant. He was expecting a child. A son was born to him, but he knew the child is going to die because there's a word was given to him that this child will die. And when he heard about that word, he had to start grieving before the death of the child. And he went into prayer, he went into fasting. The servants come to convince him, come eat with us, come eat, and he was refusing because he was preparing and he was pleading with the Lord not to take his son. And the story starts from verse 12, chapter 12, from verse 12, 16 up to 23. But I will jump all the story and I will just read a verse where he rose up from the grave. And it says, and he said, while the child was alive, I fasted and I wept, for I said, who can tell whether the Lord will be gracious to me, that the child may live? But now he is dead. Why should I fast? Can I bring him back again? I shall go to him, but he shall not return to me. This is a point where King David, grieving, has acknowledged the fact that the child is no longer there. He torn his cloth, he was crying, he was pleading with the Lord. It was his first death experience, and it was something he experienced, and he could not reverse. He was trying to reverse this situation not to happen, and he asked God for forgiveness. Please don't take away this child. But who knows the mind of God? You cannot reason with the mind of God. Who knows that if that son was born to David, and because it is a son that we know the history of the son and what happened. His father was killed, his mother was, he married to his mother, he got her pregnant. So maybe that child will be born and he will be something dangerous to the kingdom. Because you cannot reason with the things of God. Not that God is not merciful. Not that God allowed this to happen to David because David sinned and that's it and he cannot be forgiven. No, God is a very merciful God and he forgives. But maybe God looked at the future of this child and knew this child, if he grows up, he will be a disaster to the kingdom of Israel. So we cannot reason with the mind of God. And that is the first loss David experienced. Now the second death that happened to David, it's also his son, his firstborn. And this is a child that he, as a firstborn, you are taught about the matters of the kingdom. You are taught to be a warrior, to fight with the sword. Your father is a warrior, you should be like your father. And he groomed his son in the right way. Of course, he had the best, he ate the best, he lived the best. And now what is surprising me, that the death of his firstborn was because of the act that he did to his sister Tamar. He raped his sister. Then his brother Absalom had to go and kill his brother Amnon. Now, that one was a multiple grief. It is a grief that your son killed your son. And it for David was very hard for him to process. This is now not a small child that he didn't know, he didn't raise. And this is someone that he raised until he became where he is. And he had that the person who killed him is also his son. So I will read the story. It is found in the book of 2 Samuel 13. You can read the whole chapter, but where I will read is how the king mourned. So the king rose and torn his garment and laid on the ground, and all his servants stood by with their cloth torn. It was a mourning for David. It's also a mourning for the servant, because they know this boy. They helped raise this boy. You understand? So the mourning for David was so heavy that this is my firstborn, and the firstborn is supposed to be the heir, the one who will take over the kingdom, and he is murdered, a very young, healthy young man who didn't get married, didn't have a child. It was so heavy on King David's life. But King David went through the period of mourning, and he had to rise for the kingdom. He had a mission. His mission was to protect the children of Israel. That's why he was assigned to be a king. Israel needed a king, and he was like a protector at that time for Israel. So he completed his mourning with his firstborn son. And now another tragedy again happens. If you study the book of, if you study the story of David, David is not stranger to tragedy. He's not stranger to rejection. He's not stranger to losses in his life. And now the same son who Absalom rose against his father with hatred, going to telling the kingdom that my father is not the king, I should be the king, and talking about his father, diverting men and soldiers and army towards him to attack his father. The way his father trained him to use the sword, he's using the same sword against his father. And now when that happened, the army had to stand up and protect the king. And that's where Absalom was killed. The story, you're going to find it in the book of 2 Samuel. You will read the whole story you can read the chapter of 18 and you can go to 19. But now I'm going to read where the king was deeply sorrowed. So we're going to read 18:33. Then the king was deeply moved and wept. Sorry, let me read again. Then the king was deeply moved and went up to the chamber over the gate and wept. And as he went, he said, "Oh, my son Absalom, my son Absalom, if only I had died in your place. Oh, Absalom, my son, my son." This shows the greatest sorrow David felt. He never even, between him and the kingdom, the throne meant nothing. His son had value to him. He was not just a rebellious son. He was not just a murderer. David had 19 sons. If you read this book, David had 19 sons. But look how he treated Absalom. He deeply sorrowed for him. And he said, "It is better for me to die than you." This shows how deep the pain of losing a child. He lost, now this is the third son. And the whole nation were mourning with him. But now he had to dwell in mourning or lead the nation. And at that time, he was appointed to lead Israel, because there were so many enemies that wanted to wipe Israel from the map of the earth. But God rose David, and he was killed with the sword to protect Israel. That's why he was the king of Israel. And every battle David won, he was a conqueror, because it is the life of the Israelites that will be shed, it will be wiped out. So God had to equip him with a supernatural skill. It is even amazing how he conquered all the battles. There was so much enemies for Israel. But look at this king. When that hit in his family, the third death, he had to stand again and sit on the throne and protect the nation of Israel.
Wow.
So if David himself, one story about David that is so amazing is the fact his attachment is always in God. His attachment is always in, no matter what tragedy, no matter what shaking. He was a boy when he's 15 years. He conquered a giant. After conquering a giant, he was given the daughter of the king. So it was supposed to be a smooth transition. He married the daughter of the king. He's supposed to be the king. And Saul was supposed just to step down and tell him, rule now the children of Israel. But look at him, rejected. Everything he went through is a mystery. And all those things, all the setbacks and all the grieving never stopped David to accomplish his mission, his task on earth. Grief can stop that. If you go through a season of grief, you're supposed to go in and come out. But don't let it stop the task and the purpose that God has created for every human being here on earth. That is my case study.
There's so much from that. There's so much. And that reminds me, of late there have been so many murders within family members, and spouses and children murdering each other, and suicide. A lot of suicidal cases are rising. But I would like us to take a short break. Then when we come back, you are going to help us understand what is happening and how people can live through it. So this is the Voice of Healing on JCC TV. The discussion is getting just hotter and hotter here. Do not go anywhere. We are here to be a voice of healing in your life.